The numbers tell the story. Venezuela's collapse is a crucial economic lesson for world leaders and generations to come. It should be one of the richest nations on earth, overflowing with oil, minerals, and a capable workforce. Instead, it took just 25 years for government control to replace free markets and prosperity to collapse into poverty. Joining us now to discuss the data is former Trump White House economic advisor Steve Moore. Good morning to you, sir. Happy New Year.
Good morning to you.
What a way to begin the new year, huh? We've also learned so much more about Venezuela now as a result of this. 4 out of 5 Venezuelans live in poverty today. I didn't even know this. Now, under Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro, the country moved from, as we know, capitalism to socialism and authoritarian rule. So explain why economic freedom is so critical and what happens when governments trade them for this false promise of collectivism.
Yeah, exactly. So much for the warm embrace of collectivism. But you're right that Venezuela was once one of the richest countries in the world, and it certainly has incredible assets, trillions of dollars of oil and minerals. And Maduro and Chavez came in and they moved the Venezuela economy towards a communist socialist system. And it's just a very sad story. As you just said, the poverty rate skyrocketed. People were hungry. They were literally, it's at one point in Caracas, killing the animals in the zoo so they could eat them. They didn't have any food. And you saw other kind of measures of collapse in per capita income. And sadly enough, they destroyed their own oil industry. Their oil output dropped by over half, and that was their primary income. So a very sad story, but that's why I think, I'm surprised when I see people in the United States marching in the streets against taking Maduro out. Maduro was a really, really bad guy. He was a criminal, and he impoverished his own citizens.
Oil was the backbone of Venezuela's economy, and just thinking about what you said, how did oil production fall in the country by so much?
Incompetence. This is what happened when you have the government run an oil fields rather than having private companies. Remember, these oil fields were originally developed by ConocoPhillips, Chevron, and American oil companies who invested billions and billions of dollars there, and then they nationalized them, essentially expropriated their property. So the big question now, Jan, is what happens next in Venezuela? And what we've recommended at Unleash Prosperity is, first of all, you've got to give some of this back to the companies where it was stolen from and let them run the oil fields, and then make every citizen in Venezuela an owner, give them stock ownership in the oil resources, which, as I just said, are worth trillions of dollars, and that would lift a lot of people out of poverty.
One of the numbers that I found to be so just shocking was inflation, because the country saw inflation above 500% just last year. 500%. We're talking about 3%. We're crazy when it's above 5% here. At its peak, it was 130,000%. Which makes its currency, as we know, worthless. I mean, what does this teach us about what really causes prices to spiral out of control?
Well, it's a good, there again, it's a good lesson for other countries about what happens when you destroy your currency and you just print and print and print money. And maybe we shouldn't be doing that here in the United States either. But the inflation became so high that the currency was literally less than the paper it was printed on. And so nobody used the Venezuela dollar any longer. Incidentally, another thing that should happen in this new regime that's coming in Venezuela is that they should dollarize. They should essentially use the dollar as the U.S. dollar, that is, as their currency, because that's a way to hold prices down. I mean, we have maybe 3% inflation, which people are complaining about. Can you imagine 500% inflation, Jan?
Right. I mean, and this goes back to the whole idea of when you allow government to create this sort of equality, this system of, as you mentioned, socialism, communism, and how that can destroy a society because everyone except the country's leaders, like Maduro, are equally poor, equally miserable. And interestingly, a new peer-reviewed study in Nature reviewed 168 studies worldwide that backs that up. Tell us about this study.
Oh, we just looked at this issue of income inequality because this is kind of a lot of the professors are obsessed with this. And what it found is that what people really want is to live in a country that's rich and where they can earn a high income more than how much income. The fact that we have somebody like Elon Musk, who may be the world's first trillionaire, that doesn't negatively affect other people in our economy. It positively does. And so, look, I want to say this about Venezuela before we go off the air. There's a real opportunity here for this country to really thrive again and become rich again. Look at what happened in a lot of the Eastern European countries after the Berlin Wall came down, Jan. And look what's happened in Poland and Hungary and Estonia. And a lot of these countries have really become strong middle-class countries. That can happen in Venezuela with free market policies. And I'm hoping and praying that's exactly what happens
because
next.
Certainly the government doesn't create jobs, as we have seen that, and especially in Venezuela. All right, former White House economic advisor Steve Moore, thank you for joining us. Happy New Year to you.
You too.